This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of Y Investment Group, and your host of Washington Calling, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Mr. Pradip Baijal. He's a retired Indian Administrative Service Officer. He has held senior administrative positions in the Indian Ministry of Finance and Industry. He writes extensively on China, and he's also written a book, and we will talk about the book. Thank you, Mr. Baijal, for coming to our show, and welcome to our show, and thank you for all you do to make a difference, and thank you for your leadership. Baijal, you're an expert in China. What made you work in China after your retirement? Please, please tell us and shed some bright lights on your interest in your work in China.
Yeah, uh, I I have worked on reform sectors in India. Worked on
Okay.
privatization, on telecom, and soybean, etc. And
Okay.
while I was on telecom, we suddenly had a huge growth. Growth was three times that of China ever. So
Right.
Chinese got interested and they started having seminars in India and in China. We got invited to those seminars, and they cross-examined us. They examined us. So a couple of sectors we did very well, and they were studying those sectors. Their teams came to India at the expense of government of India. I had done three courses: one in Oxford, one in Harvard, and one in Tokyo on reforms. And I thought that I have so much of training, and the Chinese are interviewing us on sectors that we did very well. So I must study China. So I
Okay.
started studying China, and that's how the interest came.
As you know, China is the world's largest, what I consider the economy, which is the second largest economy in the world. And China has had a tremendous growth in its economy and infrastructure in such a short time. What can India learn from China?
That's why I wrote the book. Plenty of things to learn.
Yeah. So
In
tell us a little
in
bit
in
about it.
in 1830, India and China had half the world's GDP, and they were equal. And from year 1 to 80, for 1800 years, they were. Then both of them collapsed because of colonial rule and because
Right.
of new technology in the West. When they
Right.
collapsed, then England, which had the benefits of the first industrial revolution, they became 1% to 6% of the world GDP. US, second revolution, they became from 6 to 30% of the world GDP. And India and China, from 50, collapsed to 5% of the world GDP. In about 50, both the countries became independent. The colonial rule was over. They wrote their own rules. And then there are hundreds of stories which I've written in my book, which India has to learn from China. How Mao did it and how Deng did it. And I can go. You see, Mao did was that he started his Red Guard, he started his New Deal, etc. The China totally collapsed. There were new famines in China. So Mao, sitting in Beijing, thought that this will not work. And therefore he said, there is one country which is growing very fast, the United States. So let us get in touch with the United States. And there's a long story how he got in touch with the United States. No one in the United States was prepared to help Mao. But he created a situation in which he got United States interested through Nixon. And
Right.
Nixon decided to meet Mao and Chow. I was lucky
Right.
because I started researching. I found a lot of declassified documents in the Nixon library, in so many libraries in the US. They had a mine of information. And with the help of that mine of information, I wrote this book.
Very well said. So, is there any areas where India has an edge over China? Area that I think that the India has an edge over China is the IT industry. and the China has an edge in the manufacturing industry. So tell us a little bit. And it's a very, it's a dictatorship, and they also suppress freedom of expression, freedom of press. But whatever the thing is, they still have done very well. So what can is there any areas that India has an edge over China?
And there are many areas. And this is the story of the book. This is the story of the book. That uh, when Mao convinced him to help, he used a circuitous to convince Nixon, and Nixon was convinced. He also used the antipathy of Nixon to Indira Gandhi, because and he often called her a witch because Indira almost had defeated the United States, Bangladesh war. So he had an allergy, and Mao knew that, and he used allergy very well. If you see the proceedings of the Mao Nixon meeting, then it comes out very prominently. At this time,
Right,
USA was looking for a big market, and there were only two big markets, China and India. And he chose
right.
China as the big market and not India, because they always thought that India was in the Soviet bloc. India was in the
Oh,
Soviet bloc, kind of, and therefore they had 3% growth of a system that Russia had. So he chose the United States. And United States helped him so much. As a fact, Deng uh, created circumstances in which United States helped him all the time. And not only Nixon, the seven presidents after Nixon, everyone helped, and Deng created a situation that United States thought that they were working in their own interest by creating this huge monolith of China. When the issue of democracy came, Deng was able to convince Nixon and later presidents that if we bring democracy, then China will collapse. Like Russia had collapsed earlier, because Gorbachev and Yeltsin had brought
mhm.
democracy too soon, and the great Russian Empire was out of control, and there
Right.
you had all states breaking up and all countries breaking up, etc. For which Deng later called Gorbachev an idiot. Now, so in the strength of the party, control China as they used to, from the Communist Party, he meritocracy in China in a very ruthless manner. Now, all that led to the Tiananmen agitation. Now, Tiananmen agitation also, the literature says that Tiananmen agitation was planned by CIA. Now, why was it planned by CIA? Planned by CIA because the original aim was democracy in China. And when the Inca went up slightly, there were Muslim tendencies in China, and everyone started asking for more freedom, more independence. And I've seen photographs where young Chinese are doing Statue of Liberty in plaster of Paris. Peaceful agitation which was going on, agitation would become uncontrollable. And
Right.
not the prime minister, not the chief executive, he was the defense minister.
So
And he
so basically
planned,
what you're
uh,
saying, Mr. Bejal, that
difficult.
the China should be grateful to America, and America provided the innovation and also the entrepreneurship and also made what China is today. Correct?
But let me complete this. You know,
Okay.
he knew that Tiananmen agitation was a danger to him. So he
Right.
planned for that mass killing in Tiananmen, and there is enough evidence which I have given in the book that he planned this. And he killed 30,000 people. Initially, they said that 200 people were killed. Now, when he came on agitation, the entire country was in fear, and his plan of having a regimented system worked. By the time, but then income of China per capita started rising, and gradually everyone forgot Tiananmen Square to the extent that Tiananmen Square, the Politburo in China wanted to punish Deng for doing Tiananmen Square, but Deng was so that he got a letter written. Mind my words, he got a letter written by George Bush Senior, that Bush Senior sympathizes with what Deng had to do. But he said, I will not support you openly. If that were so, why did he write a letter? So all this led the regimented China going forward, and then the corporates in the United States are very thrilled. They brought all their factories to China because the regimented system made all the profits. How the system conquered the world.
So the question, Mr. Baijal, is: can India take advantage of U.S.-China trade war? Do you think India has missed the bus?
See, India has not missed the bus. India was too committed to democracy, and therefore it has not missed the bus. I have read Tarun Khanna of Harvard manipulated the production system, and between 2005 and 2015, in 2015, China was 5 times India. It used to be the same level. It used to be the same level in 2000. Read the BRICS report. BRICS report says that China are in the same league. But then by 2015, China became 5 times India and was equal to United States in PPP terms.
Right.
So there was such a big revolution, which was funded, financed, and supported by the United States. I have not understood why they funded, financed, and supported another country. They supported another country to overtake them. Normally, countries fight wars to prevent this. But why did the USA support China? I have not fully understood, even after writing the book.
So what can India do in terms of reforming and deregulation of the retail industry, energy sector, and insurance to attract the manufacturing business from the United States and take advantage of U.S.-China trade war? India needs to have a good infrastructure, and they don't have good infrastructure to create jobs, as well as bring the business from China, because from United States.
Yes, I told you that India is a very democracy. And I was in the power sector for 7 years trying to do the power reforms, and I was not able to. And perhaps that was the reason that I did telecom reforms very well, that I didn't repeat the mistakes in the power sector. But India did not complete the reform cycle. Whenever the reform cycle came, crony capitalism took over. The present government is trying to deal with crony capitalism first. So therefore, in real reforms, it is going slowly. Two, it is also looking at the Chinese model. Now, if we look at the Chinese model, then we will start a controlled democracy. So there are many debates going on. But first of all, the present Prime Minister is trying to deal with crony capitalism. That doesn't come in here again. As far as democracy is concerned, you have it. As far as reforms are concerned, you have to be far more aggressive on reforms. And there are no systems you can see where with this kind of democracy countries have gone forward. So
can we change the subject, Mr. Baijal, and tell us a little bit what India must do to make use of the opportunities when it comes to Industrial Revolution 4.0 and 5.0? Tell us what is Revolution 4.0 and 5.0 are.
You see, I have said in the book that both India and China is growing after Industrial Revolution 3. Till Industrial Revolution 1 and 2, it was a monopoly of the West. When Industrial Revolution 3 came,
Right.
Then you had entire world connected by the wire or wireless, and you
Right.
had globalization coming. So globalization coming in and connected world coming in, the technology of IR, communication technology, that could not remain a monopoly of the West. So though the technology was discovered in the West, it was taken over by India very fast. China, it also got taken over because the United States gave the technology and knowledge to China to develop that technology. And the result was that in Industrial Revolution 3, China grew very fast. China grew so many times, and
Right.
India grew slowly because the technology was not a monopoly of the West. Now you come to Industrial Revolution 4 and Industrial Revolution 5. Industrial Revolution
Right.
4 is so many new technologies where machines talk to machines, where Uber and Ola are run, where there are so many technologies. Industrial Revolution 5 is basically human being to machines, to computers. Now, so India and China very well in IR. They will do very well in IR4 and IR5 also. Particularly, India seems to have a advantage in running these digital systems. There are so many industrialists of India who are settled in the United States, who are the heads of digital companies like Sundar Pichai, like Nadella, etc. And in India also, the equivalent companies, they are very good in digital. So my hope is that the digital advantage will push India forward. Now,
Okay.
India has already made the networks for using the digital advantage. Now, the question is, how much of help do countries like USA, the countries like Israel give to India to develop the digital systems, to develop IR4, to develop IR5? Now, if India gets sufficient help, which it should, because there is a trade war between China and the USA, then India go up very fast, faster than the rate of China. And like we did in telecom, we were far behind the West in telecom. But once we improved our regulations in 2003, 2004, we went to a rate of growth in mobile telecom which was three times that of China. And that is why the Chinese teams started coming to India. So we have a natural advantage in IR4 and IR5. We have to we have to implement that advantage, and that is what I have prescribed in the book. And they have to take India has to take advantage of the tariff war between the United States and China. But in for granted, you can't say no. Now USA is going to support India. USA supports the country where USA's self-interests are involved. USA was made to believe by Deng that it paid the USA to support China. Now, the story will have to be broken by the Indian leadership. And that is
So,
already broken after
right.
Trump has
I
made many statements. Right.
right. My question, my last question, Mr. Bajal, is, as you know, India's economy is in a downturn. India has the highest unemployment rate. It has the lowest GDP growth. What reforms are needed to put India on a growth path?
There have to be effective reforms. Now,
Okay.
the path of effective reforms uh, today in different sectors, there have to be very teams, there has to be very educated input from advanced countries. I do remember that in the last phase, we had taken a lot of advice from a number of people when we were planning or when we were implementing IR3. Now, for IR4 and IR5 also, we have to take help of these advanced, and we have to convince these advanced countries like USA, like many countries in the West, that it is in their advantage to help India, because India is the only country which has the strength equivalent to China, at least in number, at least in area, and at least in intellect. Of course, China has invested a huge amount in IR4, in IR3 and IR4, but there are many distinct disadvantages of China today. The first disadvantage is that China has started producing 80% of the world's each area of the economy. The National Plan 2025 plans to overproduce even by giving subsidies in a number of new generations. Now, you're aware that this is not permitted in WTO rules, which means that WTO rules have to be very effectively implemented. I have gone through the WTO report prepared by the United States, criticizes China a lot, but we are not taking any action. China is trying
Right.
to take, for instance, BRI. China is constructing roads to many countries so that it can reach the markets. It is trying to develop markets, follows its manufacturing. Now, all these things are unnatural. So India has to fight very effectively. The last point, you see, when we had the problems in Doklam, China was kind of pressurizing us in Doklam. At the same time, China's BRI road from China, it goes to the Indian Ocean through Pakistan, occupied India. Did nothing except make requests. We have to be far more aggressive, retaining that territory of ours, Pak-occupied Kashmir. And the present government has had the courage to make those statements very strongly and also take action. So we have to be more aggressive to reform. Reform is very difficult business. And if you read Machiavelli, he says that anyone who tries to reform gets killed. Even our friend Deng got killed a number of times when he was trying to reform China. So it's a difficult path. Someone has to take aggressive action, and I think the present leadership is doing
So thank you very much, Mr. Baijal, for shedding bright lights on some of the things that you and I talked about, especially China. And you're looking at the brighter horizon, even when India goes through some difficult, systems. But they will do what's necessary, what's required to make them, to make sure they can attract the $1 trillion they need for the infrastructure from the foreign direct investment, FDI. They need that money. But they will do the right thing.
Let me make the last statement. I don't think India and the world has any choice. Because if the business as usual goes on, if China continues to grow at 6.5%, and the world continues to grow at 2.5%, then there are curves which are drawn by Bloomberg, which are in my book. Now, those curves show that by 2070, China will own half the world's GDP. Now, 18% of the population holding half the world's GDP, and that too, which has tributary characteristics, will be very dangerous for the entire world. I don't think that India or the United States has any other choice but to go with aggressive reforms.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Baijal, for coming to our show. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week, and thank you for watching.